Welcome back to Passionate About Music Education, a channel dedicated to you, the music teacher. I'm Rachel Hardman. Today we're going to talk about how to be a general music teacher and 5 great strategies for you to incorporate into your practice. Having taught music for a very long time, particularly to middle school and high school students, there are some really great strategies I'd like to share today that I think will help you with your own practice and that you can build on creating the most successful department. I love teaching general music because you get to work with all your students and create opportunities for music making for everybody, regardless of whether they're learning a musical instrument outside of school or outside of your classroom. The first piece of advice I'm going to talk to you about is blocking your time and the curriculum time that you're going to give to a unit. I tend to work in topics or units, and they work basically linked with the school curriculum. So for instance, if I have a school schedule where it's broken into 6 or 7 week half-term blocks, then my topic will generally last for 5-6 weeks with a catch-up lesson, because it's always going to be sports or trips or something that comes out of the blue, like those school photos, that you lose a lesson. So if you're going to have a 7-week block for 6 lessons, which gives you that filter lesson to do catch up or to ensure that you've had enough time to do your recordings, whatever it is that you need to do. I block that, and I will do that blocking at the beginning of the school year for the whole curriculum. So if I'm teaching middle school and I've got year 7, year 8, 9 or M1, M2, M3, I will create those blocks and the overview for the whole school year so I can see what I'm teaching and when I'm going to teach the blues or when I'm going to teach film music, whatever it is I want to do. When you're creating your blocks, there should be progression in terms of the music knowledge that you want your students to have and the skills you want to have, but also thinking about the blocks about in terms of how much practical work. What you don't want if you're working in a very busy school with a big timetable, with lots of middle school, and you've gone from year 7 to year 9 back to year 8 to year 7 throughout the day, is you don't want to always be pulling out instruments, putting them away, pulling out instruments and putting them away. So again, balancing what you're going to be teaching at that time. So you might in term 1 want to be breaking it down so that you're not doing composing with every year group or not doing performing with every year group, just so that you have some balance in terms of protecting your own energy and also being able to manage the resources within your department. The other thing to do in terms of blocking the units is also to think about, once you've blocked your units, then you go, I'm going to do film music, I'm going to do pop music, or I'm going to do bucket drumming. Is what is the end? So have the end in mind. What is it that you want your students to be able to do at the very end of that unit? Is it to be able to play a simple rhythm pattern? Is it to play ostinatos? Is it to be able to play a performance that you're going to record? Is it to compose their own set of ostinatos and perform? You will know what you want your students to be able to achieve and what skills that they have. That's, and it's unique to every school setting. But by having the end in mind, the musical skill, concept of understanding that you want your students to have gained from this topic will help you plan those 6 or 7 effective lessons. My second tip for you is to, of course, incorporate a variety of tasks so that you have performing, composing, listening, and of course appraising or discussion, analysing musical works. Some people will tell you to try and include that into every unit, but to be honest, if you're like most music teachers where you have maybe the students once a week for general music and you've got 50 minutes, you might not be able to do all of those skills in a 6-week unit, and you certainly might not be able to do them in every single lesson. We're giving enough opportunity for students to explore. If you are doing a composing topic and you have got students for doing something very simple with scales, and it's the first time that they've used the keyboards and they're creating their melodies from a C major scale or A minor or Dorian, whichever one you are doing, they do need time to explore and experiment and process, and that thought processing, the students really need that. So you can't do that in 5 minutes, and it would be unfair to then try and cram a listening and performing and composing and praising all into that one lesson, because your students won't be able to achieve, and therefore you're only kind of touching the surface of everything, and there's not an opportunity for them to grow and have that depth. If you've got an amazing new keyboard like we have, we've got these beautiful Yamaha keyboards in our room at the moment, You could spend a whole day going through the 700 sounds and have so much fun just doing that and exploring it. But of course the students find these 700 sounds and they need time. So if you're creating something that, or asking them to compose a piece of music for film music, they need time to explore the sounds and write down the ones they like and come back to them and really process that, and that sort of reflection time. So really try not to cram too much into your unit, but give children the space to really be able to explore the performance aspect or the composing aspect. And your job within that is, of course, to give them that sort of guidance, that the next part of what they need to do, the scaffolding. So if they've started and they're composing in C major, you might tell them to start and end on C, and you might tell them not to go on up and down straight forward on the scale because it becomes a bit boring. Can they put some rhythm in? But you'll sort of drip feed that in as they're going along, give that advice rather than try and give it all in one go. Tip 3 leads on from that. We need to ensure that our students are understanding musical elements, the pitch, the rhythm, dynamics, tempo, etc. Especially if there are middle school students who are hoping to go on and do high school music, whether it's that GCSE or it's IB or it's an AP or whatever they go on and do. They need to have an understanding of pitch and rhythm and dynamics, the musical elements. So of course we need to bring that into our curriculum planning. If you're doing a topic on film music, are you looking at timbre and instrumentation? There's opportunities for you to start bringing these key terms into their vocabulary, your vocabulary, so students are starting to hear that terminology within a topic, but also exploring it so that when they come to GCSE and they have to start writing about tonality and listen to music and analysing it, which is a very difficult skill for a 14, 15-year-old to do, they have that understanding, that language, and you can also relate it back. Oh, do you remember when we did film music and we were talking about tonality and we were talking about timbres and how that impacts the mood of music? Do you remember when we talked about pedals or drones? Because you've already explored it in that middle school curriculum, it won't be completely new and they'll be able to recall that. Tip 4 is making sure that you vary the resources and the instruments that students use. If a student is on a keyboard every single week for 3 school years and they have no inclination to piano, then you're doing them a disservice and you're not allowing them to try other instruments that you have. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, you go out and buy a whole set of everything just to pacify students, but it's really easy to fall into just relying on one set of resources. But I do think it's really important students get an opportunity to play tuned percussion, untuned percussion, maybe ukuleles or bucket drumming, or they get to try out your woodwind and brass instruments within the department or stringed instruments, and then of course use the keyboards for composing, because obviously it offers a wealth of sounds and styles and rhythms that you can explore and bring into your curriculum. If you have music software, there's opportunities within your curriculum to bring that into at the right time when they've already got some good foundation in playing. That's really important for general music making and general music teaching, is to keep your curriculum varied in what students are playing, and of course bringing in a singing element as well. Because with general music, there is a good chance that they're not going to carry on into high school and do the GCSE course. But what we do want them to do is be creative and to experiment and to have an awareness of musical instruments and what they do and how they work. So by playing a variety of instruments and really bring in tuned and untuned percussion, how can you make something work, and bring in a keyboard or singing, they get an opportunity to really think about how that blends in a really cool way. So make sure that you're varying your resources that you are working with the students, so they're not doing the same task every single lesson with the same equipment. And my final point for general music teaching is to really bring your students' opinions and values and ideas into your classroom and your curriculum, because ultimately you're there to serve them and help them navigate the musical curriculum, but also to start developing their own identity and really exploring, how does a student know that they want to learn the cello if they never see a cello? They never get a chance to try one out in your classroom or hear that really fantastic cellist in the classroom using it within the composition task. That's really our opportunity to to allow children to be exposed to, you know, new opportunities, new experiences, because you might find that that one thing that you do, that one time you go, hey, do you want to try a double bass, leads that student onto a career in playing the double bass. It does happen. So by creating those opportunities to engage and bring that in identity within your classroom for your students, really important. And your students have got great ideas. So don't be afraid to ask them for their input. What do they want to learn? What are they excited about? What is it that they still feel that they don't understand? It will help your teaching, and it will help them be more engaged in your class and to feel more excitement about turning up to music, which is really important because it's such a great subject. You and I know, because we're music teachers and we love it. Self-reflection is really important too. Students identifying what they're doing well and areas for improvement. And we have to be very careful of that piece, because in general music, we find that our students will tell you everything that they did wrong and very little of what they did right. So you have to really work on, when they're doing self-reflection, when you're asking for feedback on a group performance or group composition, what did the students do well? Get that feedback, and then really be careful of that. What do they need to do to improve? Make sure it's always focused on the music, because again, it's an opportunity for students to criticize each other, and that's not what you're wanting to do. It's not a personal criticism. It is an opportunity for students to give advice on, oh, I really love this, this and this, but actually the rhythm there didn't work. So if you were to give them 10 more minutes, the rhythm is something I would advise them to work on. And you get the students to communicate this, and the more you get students used to this, and it does take time, you know, you have to build it into your program and give students, again, opportunities to experience self-reflection and reflecting and feeding back for others. They will become much more accurate and much more aware of what they're doing, so that they can improve the work. And that's also where you can keep reinforcing those terms and musical elements and all the other key skills that you're teaching them in that unit. I always also like to record their work. So if they've been doing a performance topic, composition topic, that's always a performance element, and I always generally try and video it. In the past, I just sound recorded it, which was fine, but now with modern day technology, it's really easy to record video as well as audio and show that to the students, so they can see what they did well and what they need to improve. They again will be very critical about what wasn't great, but the more you practice it, the more observant they will be of what they did well and then areas they can develop. I think that is a huge tool that's often missed out within curriculum planning. It's that opportunity for you to record their work and for students to self-reflect. So that does need to be in there if you're wanting to encourage students to be critical thinkers and observant of what they are learning and how they're learning and how they can progress themselves without you constantly having to spoon feed them all of this information. So there are my 5 top tips for general music teaching. I hope they've been helpful. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, leave comments in the posts of any other areas you'd like me to go over, and I look forward to seeing you back on the channel very soon. This is Passionate About Music Education. I'm Rachel Hardman.